Hi computer scientists, Mr. Stafford here, and today I wanted to show you Unit 4, Lesson 5, Adding Randomness to a Program. The first programming level, Level 2, says the roll dice method in Pop Balloons game, so I'm going to navigate to Pop Balloons game, currently assigns the value 2 to dice left value and the value 3 to the dice right value. And you'll notice if you run your program and you roll your dice with the roll button that we made in the previous level, that it always comes up as a 2 and a 3. So we need to use random to assign a random number between 1 and 6 to both the dice left and dice right value. So let's navigate to the roll dice method. And we see that int dice left value equals 2, and we need to update 1 and then the dice left value. So instead of it being 2, we're going to use math.random, and we need to cast this to an int because we want numbers 1 through 6, and then an open parentheses around math, and we need to multiply this by 6 because we want 6 different numbers, and then we can add 1 to it because 1 is the smallest number that we want. So I'm going to stop this and run it again and test out my roll button for the left value, and I got a 6 and a 4 and a 1 and a 3 and another 6, a 3, a 4, a 5, and a 2. Okay, so that's a quick check to see if we've done it right. And I'm just going to copy this, where I'm casting it as an int, and then math.random times 6 plus 1, stop and test it. Roll the dice a couple of times and see if it updates as we expect it. And it looks like it does. Okay, so we'll go ahead and move on to the next level. And it says, modify the roll dice method in popballoonsgame.java to create a weighted dice. So I'm going to navigate to Pop Balloons game, and the left dice should be weighted to roll a 5 or a 6 65% of the time, and use the following to modify the roll of the left dice. So I see I have this roll dice method already done from the last level, but what I want to do is I'm going to comment this out. So you can hold Control and hit the comment button and comment out several different lines at a time. And I'm going to copy this code. So it's declaring a dice left value and a dice right value. I'll paste it in here and then we'll dissect the code. Make sure it looks good. Okay. So it says 65% of the time assign dice left value 5 or 6. So we have if math.random is greater than 0.35. So what this means is from 0.35 and above to 0.9999999, dice left value is going to be given a random number, the smallest number being 5, and we get 2 other numbers, so 5 and 6, because it's going to be cast as an int. So that's what gives us a weighted dice 65% of the time, it being 5 or 6. And then otherwise, we just have in the else that 35% of the time, it's going to be a 1, 2, 3, or 4. And we see that by casting it as an int, multiplying it by 4 and adding 1 because 1 is the smallest value, and we want 4 different values. And so we have this update dice 1 dice value. Okay, so the left dice is taken care of for us, and the right dice should be weighted. So looking over in the instructions, the right dice should be weighted to roll a 4, 5, or a 6 20% of the time. So use the same approach as the left dice to modify the roll of the right dice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to borrow this code, and right underneath it, I'm going to paste and say that 20% of the time, the right dice should be weighted to roll a 4, 5, or a 6 20% of the time. And so what do I want to do? That means that 80% of the time, I'm going to roll a 1, 2, or a 3. So 80% of the time, assign dice right value to 1, 2, or 3. So I'm going to have math.random, and so 80% of the time is going to be greater than 20% or 0.2. Okay, so it's going to be greater than 0.2, and so my dice right value, again, I'm working with dice right, is going to be int math.random, and then I want 3 different numbers, so I'm casting it as an int. I need to multiply it by 3, and the smallest number that I want is a 1. Okay. Otherwise, assign dice right value. Instead of it being 1, 2, or a 3, I want it to be 4, 5, or 6. And so this is going to be the 20% of the time down here, the 4, 5, or 6. 80% of the time is greater than 0.20. So this is my else statement for the 4, 5, and the 6. So my smallest number that I want is a 4. And I want 3 total numbers here, and let's run it. So odds should be, and this doesn't happen all the time because it's still a pseudo-random, is, I'm going to refresh the page, is what I want to happen is 65% of the time I'm going to get a 5 or a 6 on my left dice. And then 80% of the time, I want to get a 1, 2, or a 3 on my right dice. So I've got some errors in here. And on line 29, it says dice left value equals int math.random. And it says error expected a semicolon. So what I'm looking, I have my semicolon here. And now what I want to do is take a look at my parentheses. So I'm casting it as an int, and this is the code that I copied and pasted from the instructions. And then I got an open parentheses around math.random, but it looks like I've got an additional parenthesis right there. So I'm going to get rid of it because I just need parentheses around math.random times 4. Let's run this, see if I have any other issues. Oh, and I've got the same thing down here on line 40 because I copied and pasted that from above. Okay, let's clear the console and run it again. And I've got one more error. Variable dice right value might not have been initialized. So I have my dice right value here. And, oh, I see I didn't change that to dice right. And also update dice. And I need to change this to a 2 and name this dice right. So when I copy and paste, I got to make sure that I'm changing everything that I need. So my total roll, let's run this. Okay, so back to what I should have. 65% of the time, I should roll a 5 or a 6 on the left dice. And then 80% of the time, I should roll a 1, 2, or 3 on the right dice. So I've got a 6 on the left and a 5 on the right, a 3 on the left and a 3 on the right, a 6 on the left and a 1 on the right. And so roll this a couple times just to make sure that those proportions are generally what they should be. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and hit finish. And then it says, let's create the balloon object to display on the board. Create a new class called balloon that extends clickable image. And we've done something similar to this with the roll button. So I'm going to make a new file, and I'm going to call it balloon.java. Don't forget the .java. And import the playground and the java.io.filenotfound exception packages. So I'm going to import, and I know that with my roll button, I made those two imports, the playground and the file not found exception. So with the roll button, I'm just going to copy those imports and paste them in here. And I'm going to make the class public class balloon, and it's going to extend. So it extends clickable image. Open the curly braces. And step number 2 says declare instance variables for an int value to represent the value of the balloon and Boolean popped to represent its popped status. So these are my instance variables, and they need to be private. So private int value and private Boolean popped. Okay. And then it says write the constructor for the balloon, look at the documentation for clickable image in the playground to identify the parameters needed for the constructor. Okay, so I know that it's a clickable image, and I also know that I did this with roll button. So I'm going to do public balloon, open parentheses, and go back to roll button, and I see with my roll button that it is also a clickable image. The parameters are string file name, int x, int y, int width, int height, and it also throws a file not found exception. So I'm going to copy all of that and paste it here. Make sure that you have the proper amount of curly braces. And it says initialize the instance. Oh, I think I skipped a little bit. Look at the documentation for clickable image in the playground to identify the parameters needed for the constructor. Include a parameter, include a parameter to initialize the value for the balloon. So in my parameters, I need to make another one, and I'm going to say int val, and I'm using it to initialize the value for the balloon. So I'm going to say this dot value is going to be equal to val. Okay, so our instance variable value is going to be equal to the parameter val that we throw in. Another thing that I need to keep in mind, though, is that since this is a clickable image, I need to make a call to super for the file name x, y, width, and height, just like I did with the roll button. So I'm copying it from roll button, and super needs to be, if you're going to call super, it needs to be the first call in your constructor. Okay, so when I'm initializing my instance variables, that comes after the call to super. Okay, so it says initialize the instance variable value to the value passed to the constructor, and initialize the instance variable popped to false. So we're just going to do this dot popped is equal to false. Okay, so when we first create a balloon, it's not going to be popped. Step number 4 says write accessor methods, get value to return the value, and is popped to return popped. So our accessor methods, I also call them get methods, getter methods. So if I'm writing get value, it needs to return an int. So I'm going to say public int get value, and its purpose is to return our instance variable value. I'm also writing an accessor method for is popped, so it's going to be public. It's going to return a Boolean, and it is called is popped, and we're going to return popped. Okay, wrote the accessor method getValue, returned value, and we wrote is popped, and we returned popped. Okay, step number 5 says implement the onClick method by setting popped to true and calling popBalloonsGame.poppedValue this.getValue. Okay, so we also made an onClick method in the roll button, which we overwrite from the clickable image class. Okay, so I'm going to steal the method signature, public void onClick from the roll button, go back to the balloon, and I have public void onClick. And we're going to be setting popped to be true, because when I click a balloon, I want it to be popped. I want popped to be true. So I'm going to say popped is now equal to true. And we're making a call popBalloonsGame.popBalloons this.getValue. Okay, so we're getting the value when we pop a balloon. And then we need to be able to test it. So at this point, I should be able to see my balloons that I've created. I've created a balloon class. So we need to uncomment the following lines to test our balloon object. So in game display, so I'm going to flow over to game display, we need to uncomment lines 11 and 12. So I see these. I highlight both of them, hold Control and my comment button, or that slash button, uncomments both of them, lines 20 through 21, so 20 and 21, those need to be uncommented, and lines 84 to 139. So I'm going to flow down to lines 84, which is right here. Something to keep in mind, line 84 should still be a comment, okay? So keep that a comment, 84 to 139, so I'm going to uncomment 93 to 96, 98 to 102, 103 to 106, and also 108, that should still be a comment as well. Same with 113, that should still be a comment. And go all the way down, 136 to 139. And again, 136, that should still be a comment as well. Okay. And then in gameControl.java, I need to uncomment line 9. So line 9, that needs to be uncommented. And then 47 to 55, 47 to 52, and 54 to 55 needs to be uncommented. Okay. After you have all those uncommented, let's run it, make sure we don't have any errors in our code, and we see that our balloons have popped up. Very good. And we can click these things, and nothing is happening right now, but we managed to get them to appear. So level number 4 is complete. We'll hit finish, move on to level number 5, and it says implement the pop balloon method in popBalloonsGame.java. So popBalloonsGame.java. This level, we are actually going to be making it so that we can pop these balloons. So flow all the way down to line 77 for me. It says public static void pop balloon int value. So it says create a string array called pop sounds that contains the pop1.wave all the way through pop6.wave files. So I'm going to create a string array. Its name is called pop sounds. And I'm going to make an initializer array with these values, but they're strings, so what I need to do is wrap them all in quotation marks. And don't forget your semicolon at the end. Okay. To choose a random sound effect, generate a random index value between 0 and the length of the pop sounds array. Okay, so I'm going to make an int, call it rand, is going to be equal to, cast it as an int, and then it's going to be math.random. and then multiply this by 6, and then add 1 to it, because I want a random number starting at 1, and then being able to get 6 different numbers. Oh, I messed that up. To choose a random sound effect, generate a random index value between 0 and the length of pop sounds array. So actually, I'm not going to add 1. And what I want to do is multiply this by pop sounds dot length. Okay, very good. I know that there's 6, but I always like to avoid hard coding that if I don't have to, and my first index is index 0. So step number 3 says use gameControl.playSoundEffect to play the sound in the pop sounds array at the random index value. So I'm going to copy this command. Okay, gameControl.playSoundEffect, and I'm going to talk to the pop sounds array, and I'm going to play it index rand, which is that random index that I generated up here. Okay, and then it says remove the balloon object that was clicked by using myBoard.removeClickableImage and GameDisplay.getBalloon. Okay, so that's this comment here where it says remove the clicked balloon and show the popped balloon image. So it's saying that I need to use the myBoard.removeClickableImage and the GameDisplay.getBalloon. GameDisplay.getBalloon. So there's a couple things that we need to know. On myBoard.removeClickableImage, I'm going to take a look at that in the documentation and put that in a new tab. And I'm going to look for remove clickable image. So remove clickable image. Okay. So in the remove clickable image method, we need to have a parameter of clickable image. And so that's what this GameDisplay.getBalloon is. This is the clickable image that we are needing to put into here. But if we look at GameDisplay.getBalloon, so here's GameDisplay, find the method getBalloon. It also needs a value. So what we need to do back in Pop Balloon's game, find the method that we are working in, which is Pop Balloon. With getBalloon, I mean, we have 10 different balloons, and so what we need to do is give it the value of the balloon that we're actually clicking, and we have that as a parameter in the method signature, Pop Balloon. So what we need to do is feed getBalloon our value parameter. Okay, so we're removing that that balloon that is an unclicked balloon, and we want to add the image of a popped balloon. So what it's going to look like is when we click it, it's going to change from a whole balloon to a popped balloon. So add the image of the pop balloon using myBoard.addImage. So kind of the same concept here. Instead of removing the clickable image, we are adding an image. And we need to use the GameDisplay.getPopped. And this is the same one with value. So get popped, if we take a look at game display and we find the get popped, we also need to feed it a value, okay, which is why we use the value from our parameter in the pop balloon's signature. Okay, that's step number 5. Let's run and test this. Okay, I can click a balloon, and now the image changes from a whole balloon to a popped balloon. We also should have some sound effects, so if you turn up your volume, you should hear a random pop sound whenever you click on a balloon. Okay, we'll click finish. move on to level 6, and it says in the pop balloons, the score is calculated by finding, in Pop the Balloons, the game, the score is calculated by finding the sum of the balloon object that have not been popped. So in your Pop Balloons game.java, we need to declare a private static int, so I'm just going to copy that. Okay, so this is an instance variable for score and num remaining. So I'm going to say private static int score, and oops, kind of keep true to form, I'm going to put a comment here. This is the score of game, and private static int num remaining, and I'm going to make a comment here that says number of remaining balloons. Okay, so step number 2 says check each balloon by looping from 1 to 10 inclusively in the loop. So what we actually need to do is we need to go flow down, and this is calculate score. Okay, so calculate the score and the number of the remaining balloons. So we're flowing down to calculate score, and it asked me in the first comment to set score and num remaining to 0. So I'm going to say score equals 0 and num remaining equals 0. And those are the two instance variables that we made above. And it says check the status of each balloon to determine whether to add to score. So check each balloon by looping from 1 to 10 inclusive in the loop. So I'm going to do a for loop and set int I equals to 1 because it says to loop from 1 to 10 inclusive. I is going to be less than or equal to 10 because it's inclusive, and then I plus plus. It says declare and initialize a balloon current balloon object to get the balloon returned from GameDisplay.getBalloon. So I'm going to go Control C, copy that. Current balloon is going to be equal to GameDisplay.getBalloon. And again in GameDisplay, when we get a balloon, if I find that method, getBalloon, it needs a value, getBalloon. Okay. So we are in a loop. I need to feed it my instance variable, or sorry, my loop variable, so that it knows which one to get. B says if the current balloon is not popped, use current balloon dot get value to get the balloon object's value and add it to the score. So if current balloon is not popped, so that tells me that I need an if statement. And if we think back to our balloon class that we created an is popped method. So let's take a look at that again. And it says is popped. Okay, and it returns the value of popped. Find that again. So we're going to say if current balloon dot is popped, open and close parentheses, but we're wanting to know if it is not popped. Okay, if it is not popped. So that's a false. So if it's a false statement, if is popped is false, I want to be able to enter into this if statement. So I need to do a not operator in front. So if current balloon dot is popped and false, right? So if this is false, I want this whole if statement to be true. So that's why I need that not operator. Okay? Because if it's not popped, we're going to use current balloon dot get value to get the balloon object's value and add it to the score. So I'm going to do score plus equals current balloon dot get value. Okay, and the get value is the method another getter method that we wrote in the balloon class. And then it says increment num remaining. So after this, I'm going to say num remaining plus plus. Okay. And we're going to run this. See if we have any errors, see if it's running okay. Okay. We can still roll it. Pop balloon total is 9, 6. So if I go 2 and 4. Okay, so that's it for level number 6. We'll click finish. Level number 7 says it would be nice if the user could see their score on the board. And it says at the end of the calculate score method, so we got to go all the way back to the calculate score method. Which is here. Calculate score. Call the GameDisplay.update message method to show the user their score. So we do GameDisplay.update message, and we need to feed. Let's go look at GameDisplay. So GameDisplay update message, and show roll, show dice, update message. We need to feed it a string, and the string is going to update the user with their score. Okay, so then we'll go find the calculate score method, and what I want to do is your score is, and then concatenate score. Okay, we'll go ahead and click run. Roll this. Pop balloons to 6. And I'm not seeing it update my message, your score is. So also what I need to do in balloons, when I click the balloon, I would like to see that score. So in the pop balloons game, what I want it to do, so I'm going to copy that, is call the update score method, or sorry, the calculate score method, calculate score, and we will test this out. So we'll rerun it, we'll roll it, total of 5, so I'm going to go 1 and 4, and now I see your score is. So that's the last step to actually see that message update. In the balloon class, call the calculate score method at the end of your on click. And that's it for Unit 4, Lesson 5.